Raskin has to say. What you got to say, Jamie Raskin? Where are you?
Trump lashed out the committee and lashed out Vice President Pence just in the last 48 hours. And essentially has not changed his view. He calls Mike Pence weak, says, I think he called him a conveyor belt. This public admission that essentially he wanted continues after laying out all this evidence. Is he that confessing?
Yeah, he's essentially saying, yeah, I did it and I'll do it again, which is what we have been contending all along, that if you allow impunity for attempts at unconstitutional seizures of power, which is what a coup is, then you're inviting it again in the future.
All right, that's enough of you, Jamie Raskin from the January 6th Witch Hunt Committee. We all know that they are telling something that's not true. Welcome to the Great American Mail live stream over whether Trump committed a coup, an insurrection, or even a crime by challenging Biden's certification on January 6th. We're going to try to do this as quick as humanly possible. Again, the Great American Mail, we break down the news of the day through the law, the Constitution, and history. I am a Florida and Georgia lawyer, also practice all throughout the United States, and we can break this stuff down to you in a way that anyone can understand. Let's get right to it. Did Trump commit a coup when he challenged Biden's certification on January 6th? Well, the simple answer is no, and we've got links in there. And by the way, you should subscribe and share this. Sharing is caring, folks. If you're interested in this topic or you know somebody that might be interested in the topic, and we've got a lot of other videos up there, but we've got a link in the description to both the article on whether Trump committed a crime and the video there too. Those videos go through Judge Carter out in California, who said that Trump more likely than not committed a crime. We debunk that. We break it all down. We actually have the opinion for you. In fact, we've got the law that we're going to give you today. So let's break it down. What's going on here, what they're calling a coup? Well, quite simply, let's go to the United States government here. This is, as you can see over here on the side, history.house.gov, okay? The House has decided 3 elections in the United States, and that's what Trump was trying to do here. So the House decided that, you see right here, the House decided the election of 1801. We'll talk about that briefly, not a lot, but we'll talk about it briefly later. Then after that, that led to the ratification of the 12th Amendment, which is going to become very pertinent here. They decided again the election of, it was 1824, but it actually happened in 1825. They chose Adams over Jackson, and then they decided it in 1876. Election went to the House as well. That's going to be the one that is most relevant for what we're talking about with Trump. Now, to understand why those things are important, you have to understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to say it's a coup. So on Twitter today, what's one of the things that's trending is the coup continues. And this is an article by Dan Rather, right? There is nothing past tense about January 6, 2021, even though the date itself is about 18 months ago. The currents that exploded that day are and will continue to be, with emphasis on the present and future tensions, a direct threat to the continuation of the United States as a democratic republic. Well, that's strange. How can it be that when we just pulled up from the House 3 times the House of Representatives has determined the president? That's what Trump was apparently trying to do by challenging Biden's certification. Well, it seems to me the republic's still here. They did it in 1800. They did it in 1824. They did it in 1876. Of course, they did it the year after because that's when you certified the election the following January. We're still continuing. Let's see if Dan Rather gets to a point here. The Congressional Committee investigating the insurrection represents not merely a fact-finding exercise to correctly document history, as important as that mission would be. There are firefighters battling a blaze of autocracy and unconstitutional depravity sweeping across the country. Wow, unconstitutional depravity. In the hearings this week, the esteemed Michael Ludwig, oh, now you like him because he said something against Trump, a retired conservative federal judge, starkly concluded that Donald Trump been successful in his attempts to pressure Mike Pence to overturn the election, America would have immediately plunged into a revolution with a paralyzing constitutional crisis. Oh, so one man has an opinion, and all of a sudden that's what would happen. As becomes more and more clear through a cascade of revelation, there was an organized attempt to destroy the United States as a nation based on the rule of law and the principles that we hold. That when we hold elections, we honor the results, no matter if our preferred candidate loses. So what's going on here, folks? What is he talking about? Well, we know what he's talking about. And we've known it for quite some time. If you go check out my article, again, we've got a link in the description there. You can find this on my Substack page. We go through what Trump was trying to do on January 6th. Long and short of it is, under the Electoral Count Act of 1887, there's a procedure whereby you can object to results. And when you object to results, right, there has to be debate in both houses. They had 6 swing states that were going to object to the results. We'll get into more detail what that meant. Well, anyway, you go through this article, you can pull up both Judge Carter's opinion there, where he said Trump more likely than not committed a crime by trying to impede it. And you can get the Eastman memo, where he lays out the law. And there's the Eastman memo coming up right there. That's from CNN, folks. By the way, the Great American Mail, we pull up left-wing sources. We don't pull up Newsmax. We don't pull up Fox. You're going to get we're going to debunk them from their sources, right? And if you scroll down, you'll get a list at the bottom how many representatives were ready to object. You had 8 senators, and this is from the New York Times, folks, so you know it's legit. And we had 139 House members also willing to object. So what was the plan? Well, let's hear it from Peter Navarro. Again, Trump's right-hand man here, again, on MSNBC. Take a listen.
The plan was simply this. We had over 100 congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill ready to implement the sweep. The sweep was simply that. We were going to challenge the results of the election in the 6 battleground states. They were Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada. And basically, these were the places where we believed that if the votes were sent back to those battleground states and looked at again, that there would be enough concern amongst the legislatures that most or all of those states would decertify the election. That would throw the election to the House of Representatives. And I would say to you here, Ari, that
now let's see what he's talking about. He says would throw it to the House of Representatives. This is the 12th Amendment to the Constitution. Let's go back to the original Constitution. This is the pertinent language, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3. And I'm highlighting this right here, folks. That's what I'm talking about. That's the pertinent language in the original Constitution. That was amended by the 12th Amendment, which I've pulled up here for you. Why was it amended? Well, let's go to the election of 1800, right? There you see them. Thomas Jefferson, who became the 3rd president of the United States, and John Adams, who had been the 2nd president of the United States, was running for another term. He lost. What happened in that election? Well, long story short, in the past, in all the 3 elections before then, 2 for George Washington, 1 for Adams, what had happened was you voted for the person who was going to be president. And the person who finished first was president, and the person who finished second was vice president, right? That's the way it worked. Well, in 1800, they decided they got a bright idea. They said, no, we're going to run a president with a vice president. And you'll scroll down here, you'll see, I'm highlighting it right here, okay? Thomas Jefferson's running mate was Aaron Burr, very famous patriot. And then the John Adams' running mate was Charles Pinckney. Anyway, so with the plan, you had a vice president with you. So when everybody went to the ballot said, who do you vote for president and vice president? So everybody that voted for Jefferson, right, obviously also voted for Burr. Well, when they went to the Electoral College, somebody didn't think through the plan, and so they just cast the votes the way they'd happened. Well, guess what? Thomas Jefferson and his running mate, Aaron Burr, are both tied at 73. Nobody thought to cast one less vote for Burr, so he'd finish second and be the vice president. Well, eventually, since it wasn't settled in the Electoral College, it went to the House. Well, when the election gets tossed to the House, it's one state, one vote. So California has a bunch of Democrats. They still get one vote. So there's no advantage there. So it would not end up the way it would in a normal election, where you had the Democrats have more seats in the House. But if you look at delegations of states, they're actually a minority. So that Trump probably would have won the election. And it's very interesting here what went on there, just as a side note. But the Federalist Party was so mad about Adams losing the election that when they went to the House, they purposely voted for Burr. And the tie eventually got broken by a man named Alexander Hamilton, who went and convinced his Federalist buddies, hey, guys, we got to do the right thing. We all knew we were voting for Jefferson. So I think after 37 ballots in the House, they eventually got it right, and Jefferson became the president, and Burr became the vice president. So let's get to the 12th Amendment. So after the election of 1800, I just told you the Congress said, hey, we can't have this again. We got to make sure everybody knows that you're casting an elector for highlighting it here, for president and for vice president. Well, what else did it do? Well, we go right here. Make sure I get this right. All right. So it also did this, and I'm going to read it for you. This is the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, which overrode the original way that we elect the president. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president, if such number be a majority of the whole of electors appointed. There are 538. You need 270 these days. And if no person have such a majority, then the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for president, the House of Representatives shall immediately by ballot choose the president. But in choosing, the vote shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. So now you understand what they were trying to do, and you just heard Navarro say it was a Green Bay sweep. They were going to object, maybe send them back to the states. Okay, if that happens, nobody gets to the 270. It goes to the House. Now, folks, I want to point you back to what we said earlier. There are a couple things here that we've already basically debunked what they've said. First off, it's happened 3 times where the Electoral College, for whatever reason, couldn't get it done. It went to the House. The country continues. It continues to this day. Now, it's been a while. I'll admit it's been a while since 1876. It's been a while since 1824. It's been a while since 1800, right? But what you have to understand is that we're still a democracy. We're still thriving. So these guys are lying. Not to mention, when we started with Jamie, the rascal Raskin, how in the world is Trump going to do it again when Kamala Harris is going to be the presiding officer? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. Well, after the 12th Amendment and the election of 1876, the Congress decided to pass the Electoral Count Act of 1887. That sets out the procedure by which Navarro was telling you what the Green Bay sweep was. Let's go back to that interview because he's going to lay it out. Let's see, hopefully we won't have to do an ad here. It's at 5:34 where he lays out what it is. Go back just a bit and go just a wee bit forward, and here we go.
So I don't know what he's afraid of that clearly you're not. But when you describe a system where after all of the legal remedies are exhausted, the people who lost just make noise and then say that they won and seize power, don't you understand? I mean, this is my question for you because I get to talk to you directly here. Don't you understand that if that actually were the system, it would be dumb and dangerous? If the people who lost could just get up there and say, well, we want to do our own count, not the state law recount, not what the Supreme Court provides for. Everyone remembers Bush v. Gore. There are situations where they get involved, but just people in the Trump administration decide, well, we disagree. Don't you understand why people see your, whatever you want to call it, you don't want to call it a coup, your thing where when you lose, you stay in power, they see that as really dangerous?
All right. Now, he says it's dumb and dangerous and a coup. It's the law. How do I know it's the law? Well, Democrats have done it before. This is from CNN, folks. Democrat challenges Ohio electoral votes. Again, I told you the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which I'm going to show you real quick here. I've got it all highlighted up for you. There it is right there. We're going to pull it up in a minute because on the Great American Mail, we go to the actual law. We don't just say words like Ari Melber at MSNBC or Jamie the Rascal Raskin. We don't do that. We go to the actual. We're going to pull that up in a minute. We're going to go through it, okay? Let's come back to where we were. All right. So, again, how does the Electoral Count Act of 1887 work? Well, you go through the alphabetic states, right? Start with Alabama, Alaska, and then you get to Arizona, and you go through. And at any point, if you have a congressperson and a senator that are willing to file an objection, we're going to get to the law in a moment, you can do that. Just to prove that I'm not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, here it is right here. Alleging widespread irregularities on Election Day, a group of Democrats in Congress objected Thursday to the counting of Ohio's 20 electoral votes, delaying the official certification of the 2004 presidential election results. The move was not designed to overturn the election, so they say, of President Bush, said Representative Stephanie Tubbs Jones and California Senator Barbara Boxer. So apparently, Ari Melber doesn't know that Democrats did this in 2005. They did it in 2016, but with Trump. I mean, anyway, this had happened before. So that was the plan. You heard about the plan. What they were going to do is challenge the election results. Now, you saw there Ari Melber. Let's go back to this interview. This was in January. See, I'm highlighting there, January 4th of 2022. Almost 6 months ago, they were talking about this. They knew about this. Here's the New York Times, folks. The New York Times. No, there aren't alternate electors who can vote for President Trump. Once they're talking here about the fact that they were sending just what you heard Navarro do. We're going to send 6 alternate electors from the states, and we're going to object to the results, and we're going to go through it. Do you know what stopped the Green Bay sweep? You know what stopped the challenge? It wasn't a court. It wasn't anything. What stopped it was the violence. The last human being that wanted violence on that day was Donald Trump. Because when they got to Arizona, Ted Cruz stood up and said, I object to the certification of these results. And the Congress people that needed to do it did it. And they were getting ready to go back to the debate. And that's when the Capitol was breached. And that's when they went into hiding for about 4.5 hours. They came out of hiding, and no more Green Bay sweep. Nobody went through. They were going to object to 6 states. They didn't object to anything. So again, you're being hoaxed. That there is nothing wrong with that plan. There's nothing illegal with that plan. It's been done before by Democrats. It's the law of the land. Let's get to the law of the land and pull it up here. And this is from my service. What I was able to do here is I highlighted this and I broke it up a little bit. So if you pull this down, and most all lawyers have a service. If you pull this thing down, it comes in one big long thing, and I just basically just put spaces in there so it's easier for us to go through it. So this is the Electoral Count Act of 1887. You can find it. There it is at the top. I'm circling it there. 3 U.S.C. Section 15, okay? Counting electoral votes in Congress. Congress shall be in session on the 6th day of January succeeding every meeting of the electors. That's why January 6th is January 6th, the Electoral Count Act of 1887 based on the 12th Amendment. Right here. It basically talks about the opening of the ballots and the reading. Upon such reading of any certificate or paper, the President of the Senate shall call for objections, if any. Every objection shall be made in writing, and shall state clearly and concisely and without argument the ground thereof, and shall be signed by at least one senator, see it there, and one member of the House of Representatives before the same shall be received. All right? When all objections so made to any vote or paper from a state shall have been received and read, the Senate shall thereupon withdraw, and such objection shall be submitted to the Senate for its decision, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives shall, in like manner, submit such objections to the House of Representatives for decision. You see it all right there. The highlight is mine. The law doesn't come that way, obviously, but I've highlighted it for you just so we can all understand what we're going on here. That's how it works, right? It says right here, but the two houses concurrently may reject the vote or the votes when they agree that such votes or votes have been so regularly given by electors whose appointment has been so certified. So they have to agree. If they don't agree, then presumably the electors get counted, right? And you heard what him say, Navarro, just a moment ago. The plan was to have debate going on for hours and hours and hours and hours, days and days and days and days, and get these people to look at what had happened in these swing states, right? Anyway, so you heard Ari Melber talk about the fact that, or I think let me pull up the New York Times again. So we'll have to go back to, where is it? Go back to Safari. So the New York Times was basically putting cold water on the idea that you can't have, there aren't alternate electors who can vote for Trump. Now, all of these states, you have to understand, they have to get together and send the alternate electors. These people just don't show up. So all these states, Michigan, right, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, they all came up with alternate electors and sent them there. And the New York Times acts like it doesn't happen. I mean, I'm not going to read the entire article. I'm trying to do this quickly today. But you don't see them signing any article here. Well, let's go back to the law, because the New York Times knows where the law is. I mean, they got lawyers on their staff that should be at least as talented as I am, or more so. They can find this law. Well, watch how quickly this works. If more than one return or paper purporting to be a return from a state shall have been received by the President of the Senate, which is what was going to happen that day, those votes and those only shall be counted which shall have been regularly given by the electors who are shown by the determination mentioned in Section 5, and there it is right there as a site, of this title shall have been appointed. Now, let's click up what Section 5 is. That's going to drop us back over to Safari and my service, which I use Lexis, okay? Right here, determination of controversy as to appointment of electors. If any state shall have provided by laws enacted prior to the day fixed for the appointment of electors for its final determination of any controversy or contest concerning the appointment of any of the electors of such state by judicial or other methods or procedures. That's what I believe they were trying to get into, and the law perfectly provides for it. Did the House do that? Did the Senate do that? Did Mike Pence do that? No. As soon as the violence erupted, we were done. So let's go back to the law here. Basically, that's the procedure. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. Okay? When the two houses have voted, they shall immediately meet again, and the presiding officer shall then announce the decisions of the questions submitted. No votes or papers from any state shall have been acted upon until the objections previously made to the votes or papers from any state shall have been finally disposed of. Now, what that means is the Green Bay sweep that Trump was going to do was a lawful, perfectly legal way to challenge Biden's certification. And what you heard from Ari Melber a moment ago, and what you heard from Rascal Raskin, right, is that they don't like that. They don't like the law. So they just call it a coup. They just say it's illegal. It's not illegal. And it's certainly not a coup. And as I pointed out at the beginning of this video, it's happened 3 times. If they did it in Trump's case, it would have been a 4th. What's undemocratic about the House voting for President Trump? You know what's undemocratic about it? You know what's a coup about it? Is that their guy wouldn't win. And it's just as simple as that. It really is, folks. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe. Share it with a friend. Let them know the law's here if they want to get it. And again, I would highly advise you check out I would check out all the videos, and there's a lot of good video stuff on the YouTube channel, on the Great American Mail Substack page. But the one on the Trump there goes through in same detail as we've done here with the Electoral Count Act of 1887. We go into the same detail into Judge Carter's decision about whether Trump committed a crime. He concluded that he more likely than not did. I quote the actual opinion, and you can get the opinion in that video if you want. I highly encourage you to check it out. If I'm wrong, just let me know, share the comments and all that. And I hope you will, again, subscribe and tune in to our next podcast.